I am testifying to you that Yud-Heh-Wav-Heh, Beth Nusofit, Yud-Heh-Wav-Heh, Yahweh ben Yahweh is not a painting that sits in someone's home or in a church. He's not a myth. We are talking about the true and living God, the Messiah. Although he came to his own, and his own received him not. In fact, his own knew him not, according to John chapter 1, verses 9 through 13. I'm testifying to you that Yahweh ben Yahweh actually raised his hands to his Father, the level of his head, as he taught us, toward heaven, and not bow our heads down to the ground to Satan with our hands folded. He prayed to his Father Yahweh that no man should pluck those that he came, that are chosen, the elect, out of his hands during the, quote, times, end the quote, that he would be separated from them while he was in prison. And the short or half of time that would be left of this generation, that the elect, or the, quote, one measure of wheat, end the quote, would have left after he ascended, after his ascension, and before Yahweh the Father come to the earth to deliver us, to deliver those of the elect, those that he placed in the hands of his Son, this, quote, one measure of wheat, which is also a metaphor of the very same, quote, oil, end the quote, that is sealed in Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. In fact, that oil, that oil is the same oil that the four beasts must not hurt until that time when Yahweh come. Why? What is so important about this oil? Why is this oil so valuable to Yahweh? The first thing came to your mind, some of you, is olive oil. This olive oil that you buy in a local food store, that your dumb dog clergy put on the pulpit, baptized the forehead of a baby from 8 months to 80 years old. You have no idea what the oil represents in Psalms chapter 23 or the book of Revelation chapter 6, verse 6. You have no idea what that oil is. How could you, walking around in deep sleep, the spirit of deep sleep, and your eyes, your mind is closed, and the book is sealed? How can someone explain or interpret what this oil means? Even if someone give you a book, if you're learned, if you are a master of theology, if you are a doctor in theology, and someone give you the book about this oil in Revelation chapter 6, verse 6, how could you tell them what it is and you are sleeping? When in fact the word, quote, oil, end the quote, that you know of its English idiom that appears at the latter part of the prophetic cryptogram that is found in the book of Revelation chapter 6, verse 6, is of the Hebraic idiom that created the Hebrew word spelled from right to left, Shin Mem Nusofit, Shamim. That means, quote, the anointed ones who are the fatness of the earth, end the quote. Shaman, which are also the very same, quote, one measure of wheat, end of quote, that are being blessed and was promised of Yahweh. We repeat, these of Revelation chapter 6, verse 6 are the, quote, one measure of wheat, end of quote, that were preserved by Yahweh and anointed through the blessings of Isaac to his son Jacob, or Jacob as you know him, that was sealed in the book of Genesis, chapter 27 and verse 28 that reads, quote, "Therefore, Yahweh, give thee of the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth and plenty of corn and wine," end quote. Furthermore, this oil or shemen is connected to the very same, quote, oil, end quote, that is found printed in the book of the Psalms, chapter 23 and verse 5, which reads, quote, "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over," end quote. What cup? What is this cup? And you've been reading and reciting. You didn't see it, but you've been reciting and reading the scripture all of your life. As long as you were able, as old as you were able to read, even from your parents and those who go every Sunday in church. This became an international prayer for those before going to bed. So what is the cup? The first thing coming to your mind is a coffee cup. A cup from McDonald's. A cup from Burger King. A cup from a local restaurant. Starbucks. The, quote, cup that is found here in this verse in English is being used metaphorically. It comes from the Hebraic word reference, the Strong's Concordance, number H3563. In Hebraic, that is spelled from right to left, Kaf, Wav, Samek, pronounced Kos. That means, quote, retaining knowledge in your mind that is being taught to you by someone with wisdom as that of a night owl, end quote. You have to also resort to a lexicon. You got to dig deep into the archives and lexicons to get that information. The Strong's Concordance H3563 is just a start. That knowledge has to be revealed to you by the power of the Spirit of Yud-Heh-Wav-Heh, Beth Nun Sofi, Yud-Heh-Wav-Heh, even as that wisdom is being extended to you in the private use. That very same oil that represents the wisdom in your head and your mind is being extended to you even in the private use of the internet, in the very presence of your enemies, in a series of saturation. This particular, quote, cup of oil, end quote, is also a symbolical vision that are of and from the fruit that represents a people of Judah or Yehudah that are of the land, a people that possess the fatness of knowledge of that land, just as it is said in Daniel chapter 12 and verse 7. This particular oil, OIL, represents a certain fruit, which is an allegory for chosen people that would experience having their yoke of mental slavery removed from off of their minds. That is metaphorically a message being uttered by the same voice that is also heard talking on a phone or phone to the four beasts of a whole measure that is surrounding him in Babyland or Babylon, saying, quote, "These are the first ripe fruit that fell from and now sits under the olive tree that grew and is now walking in the valley of the shadow of death, that is hidden in the books of Psalm chapter 23, verse 4, and the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 15. There's your cup of oil that runneth over.